What do you have in common with NATO? Two answers to that question. First, all of us, I hope, but I'm sure, seeing you and having seen the list, all of us continue to lead change in our respective fields. If there's no change, there's no progress. Second, we all need the same foundations to take our work forward. Stability, predictability, transparency. In one word, the modern definition, the modern notion of the word security. Now in fashion, as you know, hemlines might move up 2 inches from the year before. In security, things happen usually a bit more abruptly. Think about the collapse of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the end of the Cold War, or the horrors of 9/11 in this very city. Those events are key indicators in what I would call a paradigm shift in the way we look at international security. First, borders do not mean security. Lining up tanks at the frontier buys you nothing against terrorists. Proliferators of weapons of mass destruction, those guys who want to see nuclear, chemical, biological weapons spread around the world. International crime networks. What do borders mean for international crime networks? If they're trading in arms, they're trading in young girls, they're trading in biological weapons, they're trading in drugs. Borders do not mean anything. Not only on the internet, I'll go one step further, even physically. Borders have almost lost their meaning totally. Second remark, deterrence. Deterrence is finished in the sense that against suicidal terrorists, it has no power at all. 9/11 in this city showed us how deterrence can fail. My third remark, distance is also no defense. Al-Qaeda was based in Afghanistan, plotted in Germany, trained in Africa, and struck in this city. And it has struck around the world since. Distance is no guarantee for security. It means simply that a passive, defensive approach to security is a waste of time and a waste of money. In the new world, we need to be proactive, to engage before they end up on your and my doorstep. NATO is doing just that. Today, we are engaged in operations and missions in the Western Balkans, in Western Europe's own back garden. We are still there. In Kosovo, in Bosnia, including a US presence. It was a good lesson for Europe, by the way. I'm saying this as a European. Not that I liked it, because I think Europe should be able and competent to do that itself, by its own force. It couldn't. But NATO is in the Balkans. NATO is in the Mediterranean. NATO has 40,000, as I said, soldiers in Afghanistan. We have engaged in humanitarian assistance. We came to New Orleans after Katrina. We went into Pakistan with a NATO response force, a quick reaction military force, which proved highly effective in Kashmir after the earthquake in Pakistan 2 years ago. There are also new and untraditional major challenges for which we have to find an answer. Energy security. We would all suffer if we couldn't go to the bank for weeks, if power grids were shut down remotely, if the traffic lights would stop working across our cities, if the government cannot provide basic services. Theory, dear friends, practice. NATO, in my opinion, does have a role, could provide added value in thinking about how can we protect critical energy infrastructure. What could the role be in times of heightened tension against piracy, against terrorists, of keeping maritime lifelines open. That is, I think, ladies and gentlemen, the key. As I see the North Atlantic Alliance in the 21st century, which is an alliance based on solidarity, but which is at the same time an alliance which dearly needs the support of public opinion, and more specifically the support of those people who perhaps do not exactly know what NATO is. How can we win the hearts and minds of the people we need on the streets in New York, in Amsterdam, in Paris, in Ottawa, or in Quebec, where I was only a few weeks ago? How can we win the hearts and minds of those people that the fact that we are Afghanistan is doing the right thing? Because the story gets much more complex in a globalized world, where we all enjoy the benefits of globalization, but we also see that globalization has a number of very negative consequences and effects, be it only because those terrorists who want to destroy the fabric of our society have the internet to spread their horrific messages. What about the role of the media? News travels incredibly fast, in a split second. If there's an incident with the Taliban in Jalalabad, in the eastern part of Afghanistan, it will be on the internet in a split second. As relevant for you, I think, as it is for an organization like NATO. In other words, this ain't your daddy's NATO. This is a modern 21st century alliance which is trying to find the answer to 21st century questions. And I hope to have made a small contribution to put NATO on your tables, to put NATO on your plates. Yeah, thank you so much.
How truly effective can NATO be against globalized terrorism?
NATO can only play its part. If you look at Afghanistan, and if you agree with me that Afghanistan is one of the front lines in our fight against terrorism, we have learned to realize, and that's new for us, that it is absolutely impossible for the North Atlantic Alliance alone to provide the answer. I've grown up, and you've grown up, because we are of the same vintage here, in a time where military force could make the difference. And it still did make the difference when we bombed Serbia after the threatening of genocide in Kosovo. Now, what we can do in Afghanistan, we can try the best to the best of our ability to create a climate of security and stability. The rest, nation building, development cooperation, reconstruction. I mean, NATO is not a humanitarian agency. We are not a development cooperation agency. We are a political military alliance. So we have to learn what it means to be one part of the solution in a nation, or in a, we call it, excuse me, perhaps one word of jargon, we call that counterinsurgency. We are from time to time fighting a battle amongst the people. Counterinsurgency, a war amongst the people, where reconstruction and development is as important as military force, is a tremendous challenge, even for what I can, I think, quite rightfully call the most powerful political military alliance in the world. It is a major challenge, but if we give up, the consequences are so dire that we cannot give up. And I say again, I need your support from responsibilities you have around these tables to spread this message.
Gentleman here.
Thinking about what Europe is like today, not always homogeneous states with shared values, and large minority populations, communities that are alienated. How much of a threat do you view that as, and how do you see the NATO community addressing that threat?
Unfortunately, in many European nations, the different integration models which those societies and those governments have chosen have not been extremely successful. It has not been extremely successful in my own native Netherlands, where we have trouble with the integration of minorities. It has not been an overwhelming success in France, where the approach was different. Everybody is French, we do not know immigrants, everybody is French. It has not been a major success in the United Kingdom. It has not been a major success in Germany. In Europe, people do not yet realize that if you look at demography, at the long run, Europe needs immigration as well. But the problem is that in those societies, the integration model was not very successful. And you see those people clotting together and not wanting to be part of what is the society. The large majority of immigrants in Europe are peace-loving people. But given the problem that these integration models have failed, it is a serious challenge for Europe that we do better than we have done. Because those people who came to destroy the Twin Towers should not be successful, should never be successful in breeding a homegrown form of terrorism as we have seen in some European nations. Help me to spread the message and help me to brand the new NATO and what we're trying to do. Admittedly, in this huge concert, where the United Nations, the European Union, the bilateral donors, the non-governmental organizations, be it Amnesty, be it Human Rights Watch, are as important to make it work as is NATO.
Thank you very much indeed. Please join me in thanking our lunchtime guests.
Thank you. Thank you very much.